Welcome to another podcast by Downing Technology. Today we're joined by John Milad, partner and co-head of Health Ventures. Hello, John.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
A great pleasure, and thank you for joining us. John, I might get you to start by introducing yourself and your professional background, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, love to. Thanks. I'm John Milad. I'm currently, as you said, a partner at Downing LLP in London and co-head of the healthcare ventures team. My background combines three flavors of experience. I initially started out as an investment banker. I was on Wall Street and then came over to the city. I had about 10 years in total doing that, mainly covering healthcare sector, particularly the small cap mid-market companies that were looking to list on the stock exchange, M&A transactions between small companies and big companies. It's really where I cut my teeth, learning about the nuances of the healthcare and life sciences sectors. I then moved from investment banking to the buy side, where the first fund I was with was actually a family office doing a range of private equity and VC deals based in New York. I think I'm one of the world's first digital health investors, where we backed a company called medtech that was acquired by WebMD in the late 90s. And there wasn't even a term digital health then. It was just a .com that did some healthcare stuff. But cut my teeth early in that emerging sector. Next fund that I worked at was Atlas Venture, which is a top tier biotech venture fund in the US, which at the time had a European team, which I was a part of. And then after that, I was a partner at MBGI Ventures in London, where I was one of two partners deploying the fund, making investments in medical technology companies in the UK, Europe, and the US. And as mentioned now, I'm at Downing. And in between these experiences as a venture investor, I've also spent a meaningful amount of time inside of venture-backed startups, running and building them. So I stepped out of Atlas to join the exec team of medtech Pharma, which is a German specialty pharma company that was transitioning from development stage to commercial stage with its RA treatment. And I headed up finance and business development and helped the company pivot, across those key life cycle stages. And then after that, I went to MBGI. And then while I was at MBGI, I invested in a company called Quanta Dialysis Technologies, which had had the idea to develop a portable hemodialysis device. You can see it over my shoulder here. If you'd like, we could talk more about that. But just simply to say, after being a founding non-exec and investor, I then found myself in the interesting position of being asked to run the company. And so I did that for 8 years and took it from a small team of UK engineers with a prototype concept and took it to a transatlantic commercial operation with a award-winning product that was commercially launched in the US and the UK. I stepped out of that last year after getting the company to a really good place in terms of where being well set up for the future. And I've wanted to take those experiences back into venture investing, which is what I'm doing now.
Okay, so from the sounds of it, you're quite a rare species. The fact that you've got 10, 12 years of exposure and a series of campaigns in the real world, and now you're in VC world. So that I would suggest that probably makes you a very rare commodity.
I think that's a really valuable combination of experiences that gives me a privileged perspective. It is a privilege to be a venture capitalist. It is a privilege to be a part of building a great startup. And to my knowledge, are very few people, at least in the European life sciences community, who have done both those things. And actually, one of the main reasons why I'm at the Downing platform is I've actually come together with another seasoned investor and operator, Nigel Pitchford, who has a similar combination of experiences. And I believe that I'm not aware of another life sciences venture fund in Europe where the entire partnership has meaningful operational experience and significant investment experience. So yeah, we think that gives us a privileged insight into the challenges of building a company, but also allows us to maybe sympathize and empathize and be good partners with founders and management teams that are going through those challenges.
Could you tell the audience something about your tour of duty when you were with Quanta Dialysis, how that began and how it was finalized?
Yes. So as you can imagine, when I first got involved with Quanta, it was as an investor. And it didn't occur to me that one day I might be in the position of running the company. I was really excited about the potential to provide a fix to one of the areas of healthcare that's very poorly served. I mean, there's some shocking stats, right? Like patients who are initiating dialysis treatment have a worse survival expectation than most patients with metastatic cancer, right? And that shocked me when I learned that. I think it's easy to be complacent about dialysis. It's been around for decades. Somehow it's not, having kidney failure to many people isn't as frightening as cancer. But actually, we've made huge progress in the way we diagnose and treat many forms of cancers now, and we've seen the needle has moved in terms of outcomes, whereas that has not been the case for patients with kidney failure. And that's not just a fault of dialysis; it's actually a fault of the entire way we manage patients with CKD, and get them into get interventions in place that help them, and then the decisions that are made around types of kidney replacement there. So the whole system is really not giving us the best possible outcomes. And I knew that was an area that needed fixing. And so when I met the team at Quanta, I saw that they had a really neat technology, which was the ability to put the fluid circuit of a dialysis machine onto a small disposable cartridge, which would allow the device to be made smaller and easier to use. And we saw that could transform the delivery of the therapy, allowing it to basically go anywhere and for a wide range of people to operate the therapy, including patients themselves. And so super excited about that. Back to the team, spun the technology out of an industrial parent in the UK, co-led the Series A round, and joined the board. In 5 years on, it was determined that it would make sense to bring on new leadership to help the company go from the wild innovation stage to the disciplined execution to create a medical device. And the board asked me to step in, which I was a little bit nervous doing because I'd never been a CEO before, but I was also encouraged and emboldened by the fact that I had spent 5 years being really close to that, digging deep into the sector. I knew this needed to be done, and I felt that I had a fairly good grasp of what needed doing. So I jumped into that, and it was a wild ride for 8 years. When I came in, there were probably about 30 people in the company. When I left, there were about 250. So we'd really built this up into something significant. When I came in, we had what I described to the CTO as an assembly of parts flying in loose formation that we were calling a prototype. When we left, we had a second generation device that had unique capabilities and which received numerous awards, including the McRoberts Award, which is the kind of widely seen as the Nobel Prize of Engineering. So we'd really delivered something that was special. And what was more important is when we rolled it out into clinical use, patients loved it. They loved it from first sight, and they liked using it. We'd heard these really heartening stories about how it would transform their lives. I remember one patient's children contacting us and just saying, "Thank you, you've given us our father back." I mean, what an extraordinary thing to hear, right? So it was just an amazing journey. Got that through the FDA, launched it in the US as well, launched in the UK during COVID. Along the way, raised the largest funding round ever in our industry, bringing in a $245 million Series D round. We just had a lot of superlatives. We had a lot of heartache and hard work, but some really nice outcomes. And the company is now well set up to become. It is one of the UK's, I would say, superstars of the medtech arena, and it's well positioned to become a global leader. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the continued success of the company. I stepped out last summer, in part because 8 years is a long time to be a CEO, but also I was confident the company was finally in a very good place, and I didn't need me to hold it together. I was actually keen to bring the insight back to the venture investing world as well, because having been in that role for a long time and having worked with many investors in the course of raising the funds that we did, I did notice that very few of them themselves had any significant experience in an operational or startup role, and I felt that was a missed opportunity for the industry. So I'm doing my best now to address that.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you very much. Tell me, in your new venture or your next campaign, I believe you're starting up a new fund. Could you tell us something about the fund?
Yes, so I've stepped into actually an established asset management platform that has historical funds that relate to investments in VCT and EIS, so retail investments in the UK. And that portfolio, we're managing. We have some great companies in that portfolio that are very exciting. But Downing also made the important decision that it wanted to build from that to create an institutional investment platform. So raising a new fund targeting institutional investors, which would be focused on healthcare space. Nigel and I have established an investment strategy where we think the opportunities are the most attractive, and that targets venture growth investments, so later stage companies that are in the technology-enabled healthcare solution space. So, which is a broad range of things, really, but the common denominator across all of those has to do with using technology, using data, using connectivity, having some smarts to do things better in healthcare, and that can show up as a healthcare technology-enabled service. It can show up as a digital solution that can show up as a medical device that has a lot of smarts and intelligence, or precision diagnostics. So it's a pretty broad range of things that we're looking at, where what we're looking for are companies that have innovations that can really move the needle in terms of impacting access, outcomes, costs. These are the things that are the big pain points for all health systems right now. And so we want to empower innovators who have good solutions and to help fund them, and particularly those that are in that later stage in the UK. That's a bit of it. We see there's a bit of a funding gap there, where once companies get to a certain point, it's harder to find investors in life sciences who are specialized in that stage of the life cycle at Series B, C, D. So we see a gap there, and we'll be looking to fill that.
That's great, John. Thank you very much. So you talked about this convergence of interesting technologies that are available right now. Really, we've got almost a surplus of opportunity in terms of technology, and we've got a huge unmet need, and it's an extraordinary moment in time. I think you described it as earlier. Would you like to talk about how that affects your outlook or your philosophy on this fund?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think we're like in a historically unprecedented moment, right? Where once we get through it and we look back, we'll see that everything has changed, and it will have changed because, one, there is no alternative. The paradigm that was laid down in the 20th century for healthcare and healthcare delivery is exhausted, right? And the demands that are placed on health systems today far exceed the carrying capacity of what was laid down. And so there's just no option. You can't continue doing the same. And so things will need to be done differently, in a smarter way, a more efficient way, on the one hand. And on the other, so that's maybe the slightly gloomy thing, which is, it's really broken and we can't afford to not fix it. But the thing that gives me optimism is we're also at an unprecedented moment where the capability of technology has never been greater. I mean that in the broadest sense. And in fact, what I see is there is a ready basket of tools that an innovator can now pick up to solve problems. That combines with unprecedented scientific knowledge as well. So we're really, for the first time, gaining a true understanding of how biology and life works, and what is truly going wrong when somebody is not well. And we're moving away from the diagnoses made based on a number of signs and symptoms and vague things that seem to be related, and getting right down to the molecular basis of disease, and being able to differentiate amongst them, what is apparently, a group of things that are actually quite heterogeneous, and being able to understand the difference. And only once you do that can you then think about an intervention that will truly move the needle. So it's just really exciting. And I've seen that in my journey as an innovator, as a startup operator, and as an investor, where 15 years ago, if you were looking to solve a problem, let's say there was an interest in developing mobile technology or bringing point of care solution to a patient. At that point in time, if you were the company developing these things, you probably needed to develop your own handheld device with your own display technology, your own connectivity technology, your own wireless comms, if that's what you were doing. And then you probably had to figure out the security of that. Whereas now, all that stuff is just available off the shelf, right? If you're an innovator, you're not really going to spend a lot of time working out the engineering of display or communications. There are beautiful solutions that have already been developed, that are readily available off the shelf, widely used across multiple industries. All that low-level toolkit is already fully developed. Your job is to come up with the vision of a solution and to integrate those things into something that works. And you don't need to, so your stack of problems you need to solve has been reduced greatly, right? You don't need to reinvent the wheel of wireless comms. It's already there, just use it. That's something that we have now that we never had before. And every day those things get better and better. And you can pick your favorite technology, and you can see that. Look at things like whole genome sequencing, and the fact that it used 20 years ago it was over $10 million to sequence a single person's whole genome, and now it's down to $100 to $200, right? Incredible change, right? And then the data explosion that produces, and the knowledge explosion that produces. We just have these things available off the shelf that were unmanageable even 10, 20 years ago. And so innovators can now just pick these things up and put them together to solve problems. And what they need to understand is the problem that needs solving. What they don't need to do is the fundamental technology development or basic science. Someone has already done that.
I couldn't agree more. What we see as the present in this moment in history actually happened in the past. So it was invented in the past. So no, I think that's a very insightful set of comments. And I thank you very much for your time today.